Good day from New York City. I arrived here last night on my last stop before returning to Toronto. This is my quick and regular annual summer circuit. Toronto and Points, Canada, Florida to see the family, New York to see the family, and a few others. Yaakov and I recorded this podcast on Sunday morning before my flight from Florida to New York, but we encountered some first-time tech glitches that resulted in this one-day delay. So apologies for that. But I'm telling you, tech companies out there, anyone listening, you should all pilot new products with me. Because as my techie sound guy, Amir White, always says, I manage to find bugs where no one else does. It's a special skill, and there's got to be a way to monetize it. So, the sound quality today isn't up to our usual studio standard, but the content certainly is. Bear with us. It's a sharp and pithy discussion. Here's a taste.
Netanyahu never spoke about the Philadelphia corridor. It was never important to him, the Philadelphia corridor. It's been known. Someone actually said to me yesterday, I met with a group of impressive Jewish Americans who are in one of the big organizations. So these are people who are plugged in. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Philadelphia corridor, we only discovered a few months ago that it was being used to smuggle weapons. And I said, listen, I don't know where you're getting that from, but I've known about it for more than 20 years. I mean, this has been known, and Netanyahu has never cared, and he never did anything in multiple operations in Gaza. Now, of course, listen, strategy failed up until October 7th, new strategy, but even based on what you're saying, you now know what Hamas is. Why did you wait to May to go into the Philadelphia corridor? You should have gone there from day one if it was so important. There's just a lot of you're turning this into the hill to die on, when really it's the hill to survive politically on, I think is the way to look at it.
After having been in North America for more than a month and spoken and met with so many people who care about the situation in Israel deeply, Jewish and not Jewish, one thing jumps out at me, and Yaakov agrees. This discussion between the two of us kicks in after the paywall for those of you considering supporting our work more robustly. But it comes down to this. There is a profound disconnect. Not because people in North America don't care or understand. Not at all. It has more to do with the nature of the information available here, and that je ne sais quoi quality that comes with living in Israel, of understanding the nitty-gritty of Israeli society, culture, politics. I've been living there now for more than 10 years. It takes time. It seeps in slowly. Amazingly, in the masterful ongoing project to sow division in Israel in order to benefit short-term political interests, the Netanyahu government may be on the cusp of inadvertently engineering unity among the disparate social tribes that, until now, they have worked very effectively to divide. Everyone, it seems, particularly since the brutal murders of 6 hostages at the end of August, everyone is raging. Everyone has had enough. Everyone wants the hostages home. That is our victory. We no longer care about Netanyahu's constantly changing and no longer credible priorities. Bibi has lost the room, and even he is starting to understand that. His new obsession, the Philadelphia corridor, is incomprehensible. Not a single senior official in the intelligence, military, or security communities supports his position. Not one. Not one who currently leads. Not one of the many formers who led in the past. Bibi has played too many tricks, too many times, on too many people. When the Prime Minister's office tried to arrange for Bibi and Sarah to pay a call on the Shiva houses of the 6 murdered hostages, only one family agreed. Rabbi Elchanan Danino, an ultra-Orthodox man who lost his eldest child and son, Ori, to the savages in the tunnels. He and his family let Bibi and Sarah Netanyahu in, and they let them have it. They scolded them. They said, stop. Just stop all this divisive and petty maneuvering. You are destroying us. And the Netanyahus had the temerity in the rabbi's home to push back. For more on that encounter, please have a look at the 2-part written series, The Bibi Files premieres at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival. Part 1 of that piece was out yesterday. Part 2 is coming later today. We are coming up to 1 year, and our hostages are still there, and many are believed to be alive. We must bring them home. In this podcast, we do a grand sweep, me and Yaakov, touching on the Houthi attack in central Israel, car bombs throughout Israel, Hezbollah intensifying rocket attacks in the north, terror cells inflaming the West Bank, hostages in Gaza, and an unremitting and ever stronger protest movement taking to the streets again. And we have a prime minister who surrounds himself with yes men. And they are all men. And he stands resolute, deciding that his strongman approach is not just the correct way, it is the only way. He is wrong, and he is losing us all. Just this morning, I received an email from a good friend telling me that even he is considering joining the throngs in the streets. This is a very reflective older person, not old, but older, brilliant, something of a household name for people in foreign policy wonk world. Very highly regarded. He has resolutely refused to protest, saying it just weakens us in the eyes of our neighbors and enemies. If he is considering joining the protests, and he is because we have no choice. We really are fighting an existential battle to save our soul, our country. It really is that dire. And that's the part I'm not sure that people in North America feel yet. I'm Vivian Berkovich, former Canadian ambassador to Israel, and currently work in the circuit in North America, but always with a state of Tel Aviv state of mind. Stay with us. Hi, Yaakov. Great to see you.
Vivian, always good to be with you. It's been a while.
It's been a while, and we don't have a lot of time today. So, as usual, on different continents, different sides of the world, and a lot to cover. Yeah, the Houthis shot a long-range ballistic missile at Israel, so the sirens went off, at 6:32 a.m.? They like that time, around 6:30. And apparently it only took 11 or 12 minutes, seems to have eluded air defense systems until the very end. Yaakov, you're the man. Tell us what happened and if and how concerned we should be about this latest Houthi endeavor.
The Houthis, this isn't their first attack. I think that this front that Israel has from the south or southeast to an extent, which is from Yemen, is something that we've seen already since the beginning of the war after October 7 with numerous missiles and drones. There was one Israeli who was killed in Tel Aviv when a Houthi drone flew over Egypt to the Mediterranean and crossed into Tel Aviv late at night. In the middle of the night, it was like 2, 3 in the morning. So this is, again, just more of what we've seen. There's been a bit of a lull in attacks from Yemen, but this is something that we've had since the beginning. I think what is startling here was that it comes after several months where we have not had attacks. That's one. Two, all of the ballistic missiles from Yemen have been intercepted until this one early this morning. The IDF is explaining that the reason it wasn't necessarily intercepted was because the missile broke up mid-air, and therefore it was already different fragments, which made it more difficult to intercept. Because remember, the Arrow missile defense system needs to intercept the actual warhead as it's re-entering the atmosphere. So this one was already breaking up, and therefore it wasn't necessarily something that could easily be intercepted. That might just be an excuse. That might be real. We don't know. But it definitely is a serious attack that Israel has to take with grave concern.
Yeah, shrapnel falling at Ben Shemen Forest, which is in central Israel. Some damage caused at Modi'in train station in central Israel, and sending most of central Israel, which is a few million people, into their shelters at 6:30 in the morning. One thing that you skipped out in your fabulous sort of sweep over your arc of what's gone on between Israel and the Houthis in the last little while was, yes, you said they've been silent. They haven't attacked for a few months. That's, of course, because Israel pounded their port, which is their main supply infrastructure for weapons, etc. So they may have been a little kind of knocked off their heels for a while, right?
A few months ago, after there was the drone attack that killed the Israeli in the middle of the night, Israel bombed the port of Hudaydah and destroyed a significant portion of the port. It's still in operations. I actually saw, just interestingly, some open source intelligence analysis over the weekend that people were analyzing satellite imagery as well as tracking ships. Very interesting what information you can get out from open satellites and from ship movements, and showing that there are ships that are still docking, not necessarily in what was the port, but nearby, where the Houthis apparently have created a pipe from the beach, load and unload gas and LNG and petroleum. This is part of where they get their revenue from. So it could be that they're also still getting weapons, but they have a nice amount of ballistic missiles that have already been supplied to them by the Iranians. And the question really is, why did they fire one missile this morning? What did they want to achieve with that? Why only one? Is this just a reminder? Is this just somebody saying, hey, we're here and remember that we're still in existence and you shouldn't forget that we're around? So I think that one of the questions that people are asking themselves, definitely in the intelligence circles, is going to be, what happened today that they decided to fire this missile? Like, what were they trying to achieve? And based on that, you can draw the conclusions of how you want to respond to what happened.
Okay, so now let's jump to the north, because, again, lots to cover today. We will get to the hostages, of course, because we always do. But in the north, we've had the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, saying, get ready, we're going to rev up, where things are heating up in the north. And there was an extraordinary Israeli attack in Syria, or operation, maybe is a better word, a few days ago, where in the middle of the night, another kind of action movie, special forces rappelling down from a helicopter into a base that is an Iranian base in Syria, reportedly destroying significant caches of weapons and ammunitions. There were some IRGC officials, fighters killed, and there were early stories or reports of Israel having taken somewhere between 2 and 4 IRGC soldiers alive. And we've seen and heard nothing about that since. What do you know about that whole strike? And if there's any truth to the Iranian captive reports?
I can't confirm Iranian captive reports. What seems to be the case is this was a pretty remarkable operation by Israel Special Forces, which went into Syria near the border with Lebanon, into a facility that was being used for the manufacturing and production of sophisticated weapons, particularly what has to do with PGMs, precision guided munitions. So weapons that would turn missiles into weapons that can actually strike their targets with accuracy, which has long been Israel's fear when it comes to Hezbollah. Hezbollah has a massive arsenal of projectiles, but the vast, vast majority of them are not accurate and are not precision guided munitions. They have been trying to get that capability, which would really escalate the nature and the severity of the threat against Israel for a long time, with help from the Iranians. If this, in fact, was what this facility was doing, then it definitely was an important target for Israel to eliminate. Apparently, part of the facility where the key production was taking place was underground and therefore was immune to a conventional, just simple airstrike. Israel has bombed countless times in Syria.
Right.
Apparently, this wouldn't have sufficed in this case of this target. And therefore, they sent in Sarat Matkal, went into the facility, destroyed it from within. And there were different aerial bombardments that were taking place in the vicinity to distract as well as to prevent reinforcements from arriving at the scene that could have engaged with the Israeli Special Forces. So again, this is all based, Vivian, on reports that are coming out in the foreign media. Israel is not confirming. I mean, I've heard some whispers from within people who know, but it really seems like a very impressive, sophisticated operation by Israel. And by the way, I mean, Israel's known for this kind of stuff.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. To continue listening, please go to sign up for a paid subscription, which will entitle you to access all State of Tel Aviv content and archived material, as well as comment forums and exclusive events for subscribers only. We value your patronage and hope that you decide to support us so that we may continue to provide quality content that you have come to expect from us. Think of it as the equivalent of a cup of coffee each month, because that's the cost. To stay informed by an independent media outlet that brings the information and analysis to you straight up. Please go to stateoftelaviv.com to subscribe and continue listening. Thanks in the meantime for being here.